I'm Pastor Steve Talmage of Love of Christ Lutheran Church in Mesa, Arizona. Each week, Pastor Nanette Christofferson and I try to provide a brief introduction to two of the assigned lectionary readings for the upcoming Sunday. We're going to take a look in this lesson on the Old Testament, first lesson for Sunday, February 4th, 2024. It's Isaiah 40, 21 to 31, and I'll provide some lead-in introduction. This section of Isaiah, chapter 40, all the way to chapter 55, has been attributed to one who wrote under the prophet's name. Isaiah is a major prophet, covers a significant period of time, and so many modern biblical scholars believe there may have been three writers contributing to the whole book of Isaiah. But this section is believed to be written during the time of people living in exile under Babylon, 586 to 538 BCE. And chapter 40 begins with this familiar refrain, "Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God." In earlier video lessons, we've looked at this section of Isaiah as well. The context, and again, you think this is 2,600 years ago, and we still see scenes that parallel. It's a context of people being displaced from their homeland. It's a people who are having to live in exile because they either have been hauled off in exile or it's unsafe to live where they lived before. Whenever you have war, whenever you have foreign occupation come in, hardship exists, and sometimes famine exists because people have died. With famine and war comes disease. And then often with such great loss, there's deep, deep feelings of despair. So these are all part of the emotional, spiritual context and physical context of the people Isaiah speaks to. 595 to 587, 86 BC, before Common Era, the Babylonians are on their way toward Egypt, and they do take the southern tribes of Judah in exile. The northern tribes had been taken away under Assyria. The Babylonians conquered Assyria, and now they continue their march, and beginning in 595, they begin to take the best and the brightest and the most useful to their empirical desires, and then they leave the most vulnerable and perceived useless behind. So, chapter 40. We move from comfort, O comfort my people, to 33 to 5 in chapter 40. A voice cries out in the wilderness, "Prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all people shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken." So here you see the words of John the Baptist as the preparer of the way of the Lord for Jesus. But here the prophet is preparing the people to return back to the promised land from exile. 6 to 8, a voice says, "Cry out." And I said, "What shall I cry?" All people are grass. Their constancy is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades. When the breath of the Lord blows upon it, surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. So we have a repetition here of the grass withering and the flower fading. That's human efforts, human achievements, human pride. All of that just withers away. But the one thing that the people of Israel can rely upon and stand fast on is the word of our God. And the word of our God will stand forever. The prophet is going to emphasize throughout this chapter and the remaining chapters who God is and who we are not. And we are not God. So, 9 to 11, get up. Get you up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good tidings. Lift up your voice with strength, O Jerusalem, herald of good tidings. Lift it up. Do not fear. This is good news to be bringing to people who have been experiencing the context of displacement, despair, hunger, famine, disease, and just hardship. Lift it up, do not fear. Say to the cities of Judah, here is your God. See, the Lord God comes with might, and his arm rules for him. His reward is with him, and his recompense before him. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms and carry them in his bosom and gently lead the mother's sheep. God is now going to be the shepherd of Israel. The kings that have come up, risen and fallen, have failed. And now it's going to be the Lord that leads them back into the promised land. And if they keep their eyes and their trust and their faith and their confidence in the Lord, God will remain steadfast and demonstrate who God is, as long as they don't turn their backs on God. 539 BC, King Cyrus issues his edict. He's king of Persia. Persia overtakes Babylon, and King Cyrus grants permission of exiles from Israel to be able to return to their homeland and rebuild the temple to worship their God. And so the people of Israel see this as a great opportunity of God hearing their cries, remembering God's covenant, and now they're preparing to go back to the promised land, a changed, remorseful, repenting people to restart again. And if you read the Old Testament, boy, how many times is the God of Israel a God of second chances? Continuing, chapter 40, 12 to 14. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, and marked off the heavens with a span, enclosed the dust of the earth in a measure, and weighed the mountains in scales and the hills in a balance? Who has directed the Spirit of the Lord, or as his counselors instructed him? Whom did he consult for his enlightenment? And who taught him the path of justice? Who taught him knowledge and showed him the way of understanding? Some of you have been looking at the Webb telescope photos that have been delivered from the far reaches of our known universe, and it's humbling when you think about how small the planet Earth is in the Milky Way galaxy, let alone the vastness of the universe. And here in ancient biblical literature, we have a confession being raised up through question of who God is, and God is so beyond our capacity and our ability to fully even grasp and understand. And so the prophet keeps asking question after question after question. And who's the only one that can answer this? It's God. Humans fall short. 15 to 17. Even the nations are like a drop from a bucket, and are accounted as dust on the scales. See, he takes up the isles like fine dust. Lebanon would not provide fuel enough, nor its animals enough for a burnt offering. All the nations are as nothing before him. They are counted by him as less than nothing and emptiness. This is a reminder as we live in the day and time of global conflict and empire building and nation going up against other nation. In reflection to who God is and the dictators or political leaders that think they're all that, we are reminded over and over again that God is eternal. We are not. We're reminded again that all these human constructs of borders and countries and power bases are fleeting, but the God we worship is not. And so we continue. To whom then will you liken God, or what likeness compare with him? An idol? A workman casts it, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold, and casts it for silver chains. As a gift one chooses mulberry wood, wood that would not rot, then seeks out a skilled artisan to set up an image that will not topple. What idols have you known that would be impossible not to topple over at some point with some other force? The question is being raised by the prophet 2,500, 2,600 years ago. If we're going to put our hopes and our dreams and our desires onto things that will only be knocked down in the future, what wisdom is that? 20 to 23, 21 to 23. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to live in, who brings princes to naught and makes the rulers of the earth as nothing. The first article of the Apostle Creed says, I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. Again, as human beings, we should have a spirit of humility, being mindful that we are created and not the creator. Now, God does use us to create things, but ultimately anything that we're able to create is an expression of the power of God at work in and through us, whether being used for good or evil. But we're reminded here that we're like grasshoppers in the big picture of things. 24. Scarcely are they planted, scarcely sown, scarcely has their stem taken root in the earth, when he blows upon them, and they wither, and the tempest carries them off like stubble. Again, the fleetingness. Look at human history. Look at world history. Look at Western civilization. Nothing has lasted forever that human beings have created. There's a reminder. Cities rise and fall. Empires rise and fall. Governments rise and fall. Wealth rises and falls. Militaries rise and fall. But the prophet is pointing the people to the one source who will not rise and fall. To whom then will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes on high and see. Who created these? Who brings out their host and numbers them, calling them all by name, because he is great in strength, mighty in power. Not one is missing. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. We have to accept our human limitations. That doesn't mean we don't go bold in being creative and courageous and innovative and imaginative. But the reality is we are born with limits. But the God we worship is limitless. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Why? Because what is the source of their energy, of their stamina, of their strength? It is the Lord, whose word is everlasting, who created the cosmos and all that is in it, who is eternal. Help us find the confidence to trust in the words of the prophet as we live in these uncertain times and watch nations rise and fall and politicians claiming that they're more powerful than others, as we put our faith in our wealth or our military at the expense of putting our faith in the one we confess is Almighty, the creator of heaven and earth. God bless. Take care.